Hey there. Here today again. This is my new video blogging series I'm doing as a writer, sort of testing out, seeing if you guys would like to hear things about how it's like to be an author, day in and day out, Drevel. What it's like. I've been up since about 5 a.m. doing some work here and there. It's been a busy morning. Um, I do freelance writing from home, which thankfully is wonderful when you don't have to drive in to the office. Very eco-friendly. Spent some time this morning on Twitter letting people know about my new YouTube channel. Feel free to subscribe today. Check it out. See if you like it. Also, check out my Twitter if you'd like. See if you, and always feel free to DM me if there's any ideas you would like me to talk about. And today, what we're going to be going into is the evolution of a character through design. My example today, as I brought up last night, is going to be my main sidekick. Technically, a love interest for my main character of my current series, which is Soren Ameth. Soren is a great character to bring up because he's gone through about 10 years worth of changes. And I'd say about, from here on out, this is about one of my favorite characters I've worked with. There's a couple other characters, various protagonists here and there that have always, been really close to me. But this is one of the really awesome male characters who I've seen develop from this Brody. I don't know. He's very, very, from a very serious character who was very two-dimensional at the beginning about 10 years ago to this very multifaceted, deeply flawed, but outspoken and somewhat brash individual. Soren is a character I would like to use and actually support in other writers and authors as they create characters from conception. Focus on the drawbacks to a character. You don't want the character to be this awesome, great, you don't want them to be that white knight that basically goes, hey, look at me, I'm this awesome guy, I'm here to save the day. Focus on the flaws, the drawbacks, the negative traits. Negative traits to me are going to be that they're angry or that they're vindictive, that they're going to have issues where they don't get along with everybody. Maybe they're coarse, maybe they have issues with being along other people. Maybe they're too introverted. Maybe they're too quiet. Maybe they're brash. Maybe they're... Ignore my neighbors there. Looks like little dick syndrome. Anyways, like that. That's a negative trait. But, that's what makes all of us alive. And that, with our characters, makes us alive. Anyway, let's get on to this. So basically what I would like to do is talk about Soren for an example. He, originally when we're new, writers at the point, what's the difference between a writer and author? Writers, we write, authors, publish. I don't like to make that distinction too much. To me, I consider myself both an author and a writer. I've done both. At this point with Soren, for example, when I wrote him, I was still fresh in college. I just graduated high school when his original conception was created. I designed a short story that was about a girl who was facing basically a really dark place and was suddenly found herself ported to another world where this guy was like, hey, you are technically the person that our world needs because your dreams weave our world's existence. So I have to protect you. Very cut and dry, very badly written. To an example, it was one of those sort of, I would say at the conception, Soren was a Mary Sue character to a degree, because at the time I was a brand new writer, and as brand new writers know, we're not that great at building the facets of a character at our first start. Our first characters are not that great. Now, Soren, when he got shelved, was somewhat not very Mary Sue. He had sort of a self-loathing going on. There were some issues with him. But anyways, as I was going through college, I ended up tossing him onto the shelf, throwing him into what you would call the character graveyard with that story idea, and moving on with my life. And then, life happens. Once I returned to creative writing, knowing I wanted to, get a story done and created and published, I revisited this story because it was one of those stories that resonates with you. You know, I've had a couple other stories I've written I've unpublished, um, that are big. They're nice, pretty nice, nifty, classical, high fantasy, pretty stuff. The world of Sominia is more of a dark, epic fantasy. I hate using the word epic. It seems so cliche, but it is a dark fantasy. It's not one of those happy-go-lucky dwarves are coming out of all the woodworks type stories. It's one of those ones where there is people suffering. There's people living normal lives regardless of technology or magic. The magic of the world is of a place that is not used like an Arthurian magic. It's basically used for purpose. There is people like Soren use magic not to make firebolts and Harry Potter type magic. It is more of used for the purpose. There's not a you use it to kill. You use it to apprehend. You use it to light the way. You use it not for a sense of awe and wonder. You use it for practicality and technology. It helps with and like, for example, Corsano uses magic for its crops and for environmental control. Fortis uses this type of stuff for, and like their citadel, for lighting control, and their cities use it for sewage and management and etc. It helps with technology. But anyways, with, you know, as I developed this world and revisited the everything, I had to revisit my characters. And one of the first things I knew, looking back at everything I had learned, is I wanted my characters not to be the simple white knights or the simple sidekick or the simple tutor or mentor. Or the love interest. I wanted my characters to have souls. I wanted that my readers, when they looked at my characters, they would know that this character is not like any other cookie cut. And so what I did is I basically sat there at square one and said, how can I break them? How can I take this cookie cutter sheet of Soren? And, you know, let me pull up some concept that was done by one of my concept artists when it was a game design concept. We used actually Soren as a test for concept. This was by artist Sam Liu. And I'll use this as I'm explaining, you know, the background of Soren. Is I wanted, you know, with Soren, I wanted to actually, you know, this is one of my favorite, you know, things with him, is I wanted to make with his personality. His original personality, and let me actually pull it up. I actually keep all this in OneNote. I digitalized all my my notes and everything, and I highly recommend this to all my any writer out there who's new or, you know, has been around the block. Whether you do multiple copies, whether it's through multiple hard drives, you know, paper copies, etc. Make sure, I highly recommend cloud-based servers. Make sure they're encrypted. OneDrive is through Microsoft is an excellent one. I like to personally use. Just make sure you have your passwords, all that, you know, wonderful stuff. I also use a couple others for actual storage that I use. But what I would recommend for my actual, you know, stuff, but, you know, for like OneNote is one that I would highly recommend. I always praise OneNote. You see me on Twitter always talking to Microsoft and singing their praises. Anyways, one of the things I did is I compiled my notes from the last couple of years. I found actually through an old, you know, decrepit Yahoo. Believe it or not, Yahoo keeps your stuff. It's really creepy. But I found some old copies of my files and stuff, and so I put them all together. And one of the things I noticed is I was able to actually restore the origin of Soren's personality. And it was interesting to see this evolution of a character who went from this serious demeanor. Apparently he was serious demeanor, caring, humorous in dark situations, and witty, he went to what I currently have, which is very outgoing and friendly from a first appearance, somewhat aloof and reckless, oftentimes rash and hot-headed when provoked, speaks his mind before he processes his thoughts, and which thoroughly can result in trouble. Overall temperament is emotional and reactive, dependent on stress levels and environment. Will respect orders, rules, and basic etiquette, but will speak his mind when prompted, or if his sense of justice calls for it. Wears his heart on his sleeve. Lacks a bit of self-control in his emotional maturity scale, although he has gone through so much trauma. He does have PTSD in remission because Sentinel went through war. So there's going to be issues there. He does have phobias. This is the thing, is you'll see there's this blank hole, I wish I could show this, on my sheet that he was, on his original personality, there's nothing here, that he has no phobias. He has no, issues of hobbies. He has no taste in music. But, over time we developed this evolution of this character, had issues where he was imprisoned during war, that he was subjected to mind control magic, that he has a lingering hate and fear, that his flaws are basically that he's reckless, that he has anger control, he has impulse control, he has filtering issues. He's the guy that you don't take the diplomatic situations for a character, and which can basically result in he's the guy you don't take to arguments. He's going to be the one that makes everybody angry. And that's something that, as someone who's developed a character, is this a character that you'll find in, as someone who lightens the mood sometimes? Yes, but is he also the character that you're going to find stirs up a hornet's nest? Yes. That's the one thing I love about Soren's personality as a writer is, and I come across a lot of writers who will say, hey, how do you control your characters with plot? I want to make my characters to go through A, B, C, D, and E directly as I want them. And yet I look at them and I'm like, why would you do that? I guide, I lead them. I say, hey, you see that mountain over there? I want you to go that way. I don't give them the steps on how to do it. I say, hey, I hope you guys go that way. Sometimes my characters like to, throw the bag over my head, tighten it, and then somehow I end up over there. As a writer, that's happened. You have to put your faith and trust in these characters, because if you build them properly, they will not lead you astray. They'll lead you where you don't expect them, but in the end result, you're going to get over to that mountain where you want them to be in the plot, But for a writer who's new at this, who's sort of going, well, how do I start off with flaws? There is some resources I would like to recommend. I am going to put the Amazon links down below, and I believe I should have the author's, she's someone I follow. She follows me back. She's amazing. Is Angela Ackerman. And I have 2 of her books here. Everyone laughs because I don't have her positive thesaurus or positive trait thesaurus. And I do want to show these books and recommend anyone who's new. She did not just put it off right here. She did not pay me to recommend me to do these. She's never told me to do this. As someone who's new, and I remember the day that I first got to talk to her on Twitter, I was so excited. I was so giddy because I'd been using her books for a while now. And any writer I don't recommend. I know this sounds terrible. I don't use the positive trait book. The 2 books I actually will recommend, and I'm gonna do this first book first. Hope my camera can catch this. And let me see if I can do this right. Is the Negative Trait Thesaurus, and this is by Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi. See that? And that is an amazing book. The Negative Trait Thesaurus. You can go into this thing. We'll tell you flexible, evasive. You'll go into possible causes, associated behaviors and attitudes, thoughts, processes that character will go through, positive aspects of why evasive would be a good thing, negative aspects, which we all know why that could be bad, examples from TV, which I like that. Sometimes you'll see that where if you watch a lot of TV, you may actually chime into that. Other examples from film, which they're not going to use some weird random one that you'll never have heard of. They'll use stuff like The Usual Suspects. What I really like in here is they'll go overcoming this trait as a major flaw. If you use this as a major flaw, evasiveness, they'll show you here how it could work. And traits and supporting characters that may cause conflict. So if you have a character that is evasive, that's a main character, and you want to cause the 2 characters sort of to get angry at each other, you can have stuff like, what if there's a character that's curious, that wants to pry into that character, What if there's a pushy or suspicious? And, that's one of the things I love about this book is it's one of those ones that, you know, I've never had an issue of, especially when I'm making new characters, which I'm starting to fine tune for my next book of the series Dream of Sominia. We're always adding, I just had to add a couple characters when I was finishing my fine tuning for the current book that's just getting ready to come out, and I had to add a character. And so what we really quickly did is me and my editor, I told her, hey, I gotta go grab this book. Let me go grab, because I have to make a character. And she goes, why? And I go, I gotta grab the flaws. The flaws are what make a character. It's not the positive stuff. It's this that makes the depths of a character. And for example, for Soren, he's reckless. And I'm actually pulled the reckless, which is one of the great ones. What are traits in supporting characters that are, what would cause Soren not to get along with somebody? Someone who's cautious, someone who's cowardly, flaky, nervous, obedient, someone who's oversensitive, someone who's proper, responsible, or who's a worrywart. Which is actually hilarious because I got a couple characters coming up in the next book who are going to probably be causing some gears to be ground with Soren. Another book by that same author, which is Angela Ackerman and Becca Puglisi, is The Emotions Thesaurus, especially if you're having issues with showing versus telling and not getting, having issues with your characters, and you want to know what does it feel, what do the characters feel, what are the physical signs. It's amazing. This is, has saved me in times when I thought I'm going to have writer's block. I don't know how to describe how someone would feel, not really what they're feeling, but what physical traits they're showing when they're excited, which I know sounds really, really dumb, but you don't want to be the cliche of the heart's pounding because they're excited. You want them to show that maybe their hands are trembling, or maybe there's something a little bit, not as basic when someone's excited. Maybe their eyes are dilating. There's different things that you'll see with people that most writers want to sort of not try to hit that cliche, because it's so easy to say the brows furrow when you're, frustrated. And I hate doing that one. Or it's one of the things you'll notice when you're writing is the face. I hate using, how do you say expressions? There's only so many ways you can say expression. The grimace, or, they frown. But, there's, you got to come up with creative ways when you're writing. And that's one of the things I want to talk about is there a point when there's, with all of this, is with flaws. Can you have too many flaws? That's a question I want to ask you guys. And I will put a poll in this. Can you, as a writer, put too many flaws on a character? My personal answer to that, yes. Is there a point that you overburden a character with too many flaws? Can I have break Soren too much? Yes, and I have done it. Soren, at one point, had basically I killed all of his parents. We used to joke that there was a dead parent syndrome in my book. We called it the Batman syndrome as a joke because with having recent big huge war in the book, we started questioning, was there too many dead parents? And then we jokingly called it the Batman syndrome, which everyone knows. Batman loses both parents, all that stuff. We started calling it the Batman syndrome. So we actually had to revive a bunch of characters' parents, make sure not too many parents were dying left and right. Soren, unfortunately, when I was developing his character and I presented it, one of my editors who was helping me with making sure my plot, I didn't have too many plot holes, and this was during the game development stuff, when I actually had a writer team under me who was making sure I didn't have any plot holes, which not many writers get this luck. When you've developed something that's taken so many years, that sometimes even writers who are experienced will have this go right over your head of, hey, Amy, wait a second, Adrian's parents, what's going on with them? Amy, Lena's parents, what's going on with them? Hey, Soren's parent, wait, Amy, you're killing too many parents. And so what they ended up doing to me is they said, you got to pick one. And they said, pick somebody, and we're going to pick someone's parents for you. And I said, okay, I'm going to revive Soren's parents. Originally, I actually had killed Soren's parents. This is between you, me, now the world. I had killed Soren's parents, which are now thankfully alive and well and healthy at this point. And a lot of people, when I had my team of writers, they were like, okay, good. And I said, let's revive these parents too. And let's revive these parents too. But let's keep Adrian's parents dead. At this point of this conception. Now, looking on, I can't reveal too many spoilers here, but let's kill this person. Let's revive this person. Let's do this. So now we don't have this Batman syndrome across the board, because you don't want to go cliche. That's sort of a balancing with lore that you will come across with creating a character and evolution. That it is something that even when you're working characters and you have multiple characters, you're going to have that issue. And make sure you got a balance. It starts off with one character. Hey, great, you killed both parents. Hey, great, But then you start realizing it starts sort of doing this trickle down effect of, oops, I sort of did that over there a couple months ago to those people's parents. Yeah. So, looking back, was it great? Yeah. So, that's one thing you want to work on is make sure you balance the flaws, but I prefer to have slightly more flaws than positive aspects. What are Soren's positive aspects? Soren with his reckless behavior. Is there some good aspects of Soren's reckless behavior? Yeah, Soren's one of those guys that will jump right in. He's very practical. Is he going to jump in and be stupid? Not. It's sort of an iffy. It's one of those things that Soren trusts his instincts. Soren's one of those guys that if he's going to charge into a fray of beating somebody up, he's going to do it smartly, but he's also going to be practical in terms of conflict and bad situations. If it's a diplomatic situation, you want to make him wait outside. That's just one of those things. With that, when you have a character, say you're using this as a character who is a minor, or if this is a main protagonist. For example, Soren, he has been tested as a main protagonist, instead of a supporting character. He is gone from a love interest at some certain points played with, and then removed to just a basic sidekick. But throughout his evolution as a character, that's one of the things that we've learned is at one point, thankfully, through Soren's evolution, we've discovered, hey, we needed to add some supporting characters. And that's one of the stories I like to bring up, and I'm sorry this is sort of long, is you'll have characters, just as you're developing characters, wait, hey, I need someone to balance this guy out. And, one of the fun things I did is just to share that really quick. If it wasn't for Soren, we wouldn't have Adrian Steffen. Adrian was designed to balance this mofo out. No offense. Originally, and that's what's really hilarious is when I developed Adrian, I remember sitting there going, wow, this Adrian dude, I think I accidentally overpowered him. How do I break him? How do I create some flaws? And I wrote, wow, I think I just created a new main character. Oops. And so I had to actually fine tune and start with the lore and developing the lore. And this was in early stages of, the origin content. I actually, I was going, oops, is this a new replacement for Soren? Have I found someone who's a little bit better than Soren? And in the end, it sort of did work out, because Soren sort of had to take this step from here, move here. Then sort of over time with the story, Soren, they balance each other out to a degree with characters. And it works. Soren's, I like where Soren is right now as a character. Oh, I love it. I think it's perfect, because what's happening is as those shifts are happening with Amelia, who is a protagonist who's slowly coming up to the forefront of everything, even though she is the main protagonist, she's telling the story from first person. You're watching as a shift of dynamics for who's of the guys, which one of them is actually more becoming sort of the protagonist for male lead. And it's actually really great, because you see Adrian sort of gracefully taking his step back, even though he's technically should be the front dude for a lot of things politically, etc. But it's sort of one of those interesting things that I like looking at. Anyways, I'm about running out of time. It's 20 minutes. If there's anything I'm going to be adding a poll to this. Make sure, I want to ask you, if there's too many flaws, can you add too many flaws? Do you agree or disagree? Feel free to add your comments below. Some people may disagree with me. Some people actually may have a better insight. I would love to hear your opinion on this matter. Anyways, I would also like to add and let you guys know, check out my website for my book. It's coming out. It's going to be coming out in a couple weeks, about 2 months. Is going to be Dreams of Sominia. The first book is Into the Dream. Features all these characters and stuff I'm talking about on a daily basis. It's www.sominia.com. You'll see there should be a thing up here to click, probably over there. Hey, and if there's anything else you need, if you want to get a hold of me, I do have a beta reading team. I do give out gifts, as I explained on the first one, such as, signed copies, free copies. You will not believe they're not just Kindle. I'm talking hard copies, etc. If you'd like to provide being on my beta reading team. They do alpha read, which those guys, I feel sorry for them. They actually get the unedited, and they actually work through Slack and get unedited copies of things. And then they get to tell me if they like the plot. They actually get the rights to tell me if things do not work out. And I have had a couple of them that are in this trusted roundtable of things tell me if they like this stuff. And for all writers, I highly recommend, if you ever have a collaboration like this, use Slack. There's a website, it's called Slack. It's used by a lot of high, I think EA uses it, NASA, etc. It's a free, amazing, I will put links down below for both, not only the books I referred to that I recommend to anyone who's writing, but that, along with a couple other resources, should be down below us. Anyways, thank you for listening to this. Thank you for being with me today. Any questions, feel free to hit me on Twitter, DM, ask away. Take care. Thanks. Bye.